The round of 12 is underway, and only one driver is now safely on to that round of 8. It's William Byron. What do the other drivers have to do to ensure their spot in the next round? And Jeff, let's start with you. As we look at kind of the top of the point standings with William Byron and the win, Denny Hamlin, is there anything special these guys have to do at the top of this list?
Finish. You know what I mean? I think when you go to Talladega, it's such a scary race when you're talking about points. I think Denny Hamlin, Buescher, and I would even say Bell, all those guys want a clean race with no big calamity for them to be involved in it. They'd love others to be involved in it. But I feel like if they leave Talladega with reasonable points, they're in good shape going into the Roval.
Rick, what I'll add is I think that's a little bit the same for everyone. And what I mean by that is if I'm a crew chief for any playoff driver other than William Byron, who's already advanced, my goal would be to leave Talladega not needing a win at the Roval. We have seen anything happen at the Roval. Let's not panic early. Now, there may be a time for panic, and it might be a week from now looking at the Roval. Let's not put ourselves there. So even Kyle Busch at minus 17, do not put yourself 40, 50 points behind where the only pathway forward is a victory. I don't think anyone on the leaderboard is in a must-win situation. Now, I will say, I think Kyle Busch could be more aggressive early. I think he can make those drivers that Jeff just talked about uncomfortable because it's easy to say you want a smooth day until everyone around the cut line finishes in the top 5 of stage 1 and the top 5 of stage 2 and start filling their buckets. That will bring that, that anxiety level up. But to be honest, Jeff, how many times have we tried to predict what's going to happen down at Talladega? It's impossible. You really need to kind of ignore it all. You need to work on having a good driving race car, a good strategy, and empower your driver to make decisions. If I'm okay with Jeff bailing out with 5 to go, I want him to know that. Where if I think we need points, I can't have him lift and me be mad that he gave up on the run he had.
There are a few drivers, Rick, that I think are super nervous about Talladega because of the Roval. We have some that are very confident in the Roval. They're good road racers. But if I think about Brad Keselowski and the way he's run on road courses lately, Ross Chastain has struggled on road courses lately, which is hard for me to say based on his speed last year. But this year, in the last few races, I just don't think that they've consistently been fast enough. And Bubba Wallace, those guys are nervous, are more nervous about their highest potential going to the Roval. Like, do they think they have the speed to win? Do they think they have the speed to run top 5? Because I would question whether they do or not. So for those guys, I think that they emotionally feel like they got to put points in their bucket now because they're going to have a deficit of points when they leave the Roval. And I think that puts pressure on them right now. I don't say they have to win, but they need to gain a lot of points.
Steve, does that change strategy for anybody as far as stage points? Because really, when you mentioned it, Kyle Busch is the lowest in the point standings, 17 below that cut line. So really, out of just the stages, he could get out of the bottom and even get above the cut line.
Well, no one likes to talk track position at a super speedway because we like to think back to Dale Sr. going from 18th to 1st in the closing laps. But those days at Talladega are behind us. These guys will race from the first lap to get to the front. Some guys will give it up if they're in the middle of the race, but no one in the front 2 or 3 rows are going to give up that track position. We probably will see a green flag cycle. That will set the stage on who has a chance. So the short answer to your question, Rick, is when you see 1 or 2 to go, if you're in the top 13 or 14, I think you're looking ahead. If you're 15th, 16th, you perhaps are looking in the mirror trying to find your way out. The last thing you want to do is wreck for 13th at the end of a stage. If you wreck for 2nd, well, I don't love it. There was at least a reward on the other side of that start-finish line. You got to know your situation in the last couple laps. And then after stage 1, same thing applies to stage 2. So it is going to be very interesting. The one driver we haven't mentioned and the one driver we're going to talk about all weekend long, Kyle Larson, who was fastest at Texas, got in a wreck. You're going to wonder at Talladega if they wish they would have just been okay with 2nd. I know they had a race-winning car, but now they're all the way down at the cut line. And poor Kyle Larson, he is not a speedway guy. And I don't put that on him. I don't think it's his decisions or his moves or just bad luck or a combination of. But poor Kyle Larson does not see the end of a lot of super speedway races. I don't know why, but that's just facts, Jeff. So he has to be very nervous heading to one.
Yeah, and you know what they're all really nervous about is the guys that are in the playoffs, because in this race there is a field full of drivers that go here thinking they can win and need to win for a career, for a year, for their future, and they are willing to do things that the playoff guys don't want them doing. And that's just the nature of the beast. And we will see non-playoff drivers get into something that causes trouble for playoff drivers, because this is their opportunity to win a race.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Motormouths, presented by Toyota.
Hi, I'm Parker Kligerman. For more access like this from Pit Road, be sure to click and subscribe to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube channel.